And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, and I'm General Manager at WEIU. Today we're talking to the folks from the Mattoon Public Library. We have Carl Walworth. Welcome, Carl.
Good to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
And Mr. Chris Suerdieck.
Hey, thank you for coming, asking us to come, Jeff.
Well, I'm glad you guys are in here on this nice Monday here in Central Illinois. And I want to get to what you're doing at the library in a minute, Chris. We'll start off with Carl just for a second here. Sure. I guess with COVID and everything, I mean, where are we at right now? What's new, and what's the hours, and what's the library status as of right now?
Well, our hours have been 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and 9 to 1 on Saturday, really since last June. So we haven't been closed. We are picking up this summer some activities. The YMCA Day Camp, which we didn't have last summer. That starts, I think, this week, and the day campers will be coming and using the second floor. We will have more activity up on the second floor. Our meeting rooms downstairs, we have not had family parties, but otherwise we have service clubs, and different groups have continued to meet down there. Of course, both our physical book checkouts and digital book checkouts have been strong and are getting closer to normal. I wouldn't call them normal yet, but they're getting there, and so we have a lot of things happen, a lot of good energy.
So we're inching up on normal. I like the way I like the one that somebody told me that this weekend. We're inching up on normal.
We are inching up on normal, and we hope to be able to do some more programming. Programming has probably suffered the most, and we're gradually kind of moving back in that direction. But our libraries, really, I think we've done pretty well through COVID.
There you go. Now, Chris, one of the things that you've really brought attention to the Mattoon Public Library is this local history project, and it's like everywhere you go, you've seen what Chris has done downstairs and all these things. So, before we get into like what it is, I mean, where did the idea? Was it your idea? Was it a group of people's idea? What inspired this thing to happen?
Well, that's a very good question, and some people know I've had a lifelong love for the library, and I was on the library board for 20 plus years. And one of the little secrets of the library is we always had what was called the local history room. And serendipitously, librarians over the years would hold on to files. They would create information on various aspects of things that happened in Mattoon over the years. But sadly, they kind of just got filed away. Very few people even knew they were there, and nobody had access to them. Excuse me. So after I retired, Carl and I were talking one day at lunch. I forget. I think I wound up paying for his lunch. I'm not sure how that worked out.
That was a given, yeah.
Yeah. But Carl asked me if I'd be interested in actually just coming back and serving on the library board, and I told him, hey, I've just retired. I'm not looking for a job, but I'm looking for a project, but I really don't think I want to be back on the board. And Carl said, would you like to come down and take a look at the local history room and see if we can make something a little more open to the public and more accessible in this room, because it's a hidden treasure. So for probably about the first 8 to 10 months that I started volunteering down there, and Carl kind of seriously said, if you want to come in 2 or 3 hours a week, that'd be fine. Well, 2 or 3 hours a week really quickly turned into 5 or 6 hours a day. And so I spent those first several months just kind of sorting out what we had, figuring out what was there, and putting it in some kind of a semblance of order, and sorting out the chaos, if you will.
Yeah.
So the local history center is what we are now calling it, is 4 rooms in the basement and 2 in a hallway, and we have over 100 displays based on businesses, events, and institutions that have made Mattoon what it is from really 1855. So all of the displays we have, all of the what I call storyboards, which are the posters on the wall, their genesis was all in all that information that was kind of hidden away in the history room. So it just kind of took a life of its own.
No, I was just saying, well, then how did you, like, when you decided, hey, I want to put this up into some kind of organized chaos, did you start, like, from 1850 on, or did you kind of categorize them into different packets and lay them out? Or?
I kind of categorized it into, like, here's the businesses that really had an impact.
Yeah.
Here are the institutions. So instead of doing it chronologically, I kind of just did it in in groupings, if you will.
That makes sense.
And kind of the first thing I did is, and so I started, I'm not a Facebook person. I've got a Facebook page because frankly, you have to have one to be able to get on. But I don't go on there every day and say I had a ham salad for lunch and Carl and I went to EIU. But I follow, there's a really great site called The Good Old Days in Mattoon, Illinois.
That is a good site.
So I started following that, and I would see people making comments, and people would put up a picture and say, who recognizes this old gas station, or who recognizes this car dealership? So that was kind of the genesis for some of the earliest displays I did, and I saw that people were really interested in three things: gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants. So kind of the very first project I did that's out in the hallway, and it was kind of then the template for everything else I did. I researched back and found out a listing of gas stations, grocery stores, and restaurants, and then put them on a map and put push pins in the map to show where they were. Yeah. And it just makes such a visual impact. And so that was what kind of gave me the, like I said, the template. Everything I've done, I've tried to do a balance of narrative and graphics, because everybody now is visual. People don't want to, you know, your typical museum, you go and you stand and you look at a whole wall full of text and you read it and you're bored to tears. So all of the displays I've done, I call them storyboards. Yep. And they're kind of a snapshot, or in the computer term, they're a thumbnail. So they kind of tell the beginning, what's important, and then if it's still ongoing, or the end. So, and that's kind of how I've based, and I try and base them all on about a mix of about half narrative, half graphics, half photos.
Now, do you, let's say that you've got a good thing going on a subject or a certain, and you can't find something. Now, do you ask for help, or do you have to do any research on your own, like an archivist would? Or
I do most of the research on my own. I have different times posted on that Facebook page, hey, does anybody have any photos of this or that? I haven't had as much response of asking for stuff, but what's been kind of interesting, especially here of late, because several of you that follow that page know, in about the last couple of months, I've started doing what I call one major post a week. And what I do is I take one of the storyboards that we have, and then and usually in creating a storyboard, like I said, it's a snapshot, so I can only use a little bit of the information. So on most of the storyboards, I've got you know 3 or 4 times more information. So I take and flesh that out into more of a full story, and then put it on Facebook as on the Good Old Days page, like I said, as a major post, and then people respond to those. I've had better luck. People will see one I did, like give you a very good example, I did one about 6 weeks ago on Keeney Manufacturing, which was, they made all the old chrome dinette sets. And at one time, Keeney Manufacturing in Mattoon was the largest manufacturer of chrome dinette sets in the United States. Right after I put that posting up, a gal contacted me on personal message and said, I have got a full color catalog from Keeney. Would you like to have it? Well, I mean, that's like
gold, man.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It absolutely is gold. And it's 34 pages in full color of the 1954 Keeney catalog. I mean, to me, it's priceless. And that's how I have gained a lot.
I love stories like that.
Yeah, and those are, and in all seriousness, those are happening not every day, but once or twice a week, now that we're getting the word out and people are responding to the posts.
And then for the library's point of view, when you have something like this, it's really been a hit for the community. People are talking about it, you know, online, offline, at the coffee shops. What does it do for the library?
Well, I think we help each other because one of the things that I think helps drive Chris is to have traffic, people to come and appreciate all of his hard work. And so when you host it at the library is open, and so it gives people a place where they can come and see things. And so it's good for the library in that it generates traffic. It's good for Chris in that it generates traffic. And also, we're blessed with a big building, 26,000 square feet, and you need to find ways to use that space. And this takes up basically the basement level and gives us a really community-oriented use of that space, and so it helps us to use our space effectively. So it's to me, I don't really like the term win-win, but nothing else comes to mind.
It's a no-brainer, right? It seems like, yeah, it's just really
yeah, it works for both of us. And Chris has the computer and the you know, he can go back through the material and it's all right there as far as doing his archival work. And he's created these old wooden, he's put together the wooden cabinets to house the files and that sort of thing. So we complement each other very well. It's great for the library to have that traffic, and I hope people maybe have noticed the signage in the front, of which the local history center is prominently displayed.
Yeah, and the new sign looks really good, by the way. I pointed that out not too long ago. You notice it when you drive by on Charleston there. Chris, now when you talk about the basement of the library, how much space are you? Is there space to keep going, or do you get to the point now where you have to, like, oh, how am I going to finagle this into there, or do I take something down? What's the process?
So far, I haven't taken anything down, but the finagle is a good word.
I like that one.
Yeah, I'm casting about quite a bit, and so I'm tailoring. What I'm doing right now is I'm tailoring to fit the space that I have, and so I've just always been this way. I guess it's just my nature. But I always like to plot things out.
Yeah.
So I will draw the wall, and then I'll draw in all the spaces of the different size. So I kind of know what I've got
to work with.
To work with, and so. And everything I've done, I've done it in phases. So like I did the first room as a phase, and then I did the hallway as a phase. And I kind of had everything preordained as to what was going to go in there. So what I'm really doing now, and it really complements what I'm doing on Facebook, because like I said earlier, every single poster board that I have researched, I've got tons more information. So my goal always was to eventually have like a binder, and then eventually we'll digitize that binder. That's kind of our next phase.
I get, yeah.
So like if you're interested in the Keeney manufacturing and you come in there and you look at the board on the wall about Keeney manufacturing, my goal is you'll be able to turn around, pull out that binder, see 2 or 3 dozen more pictures, see more in-depth analysis of what Keeney did, and then so you can learn more about it. And that's all going to be very subjective to, you know, some people come down there more interested in the sports, some people come down there more interested in, you know, like the autos, the service stations, some people, so we're going to make it to where you can come down and do a deeper dive into whatever interests you, without taking away from the overall.
Is there something next on your list that you want to do, that you like, another category that you haven't gotten into? Can you give us a preview or a tease or whatever?
Yeah, at some point, and Carl and I have talked about this, and this will be something we do have to find a place to display, because like I said, I've really focused on businesses, events, and institutions.
Yeah.
The next thing I'd really like to dive into is the people that made Mattoon, going all the way back to the early founders. Some of the names that some people may recognize around town: Cunningham, McFall, Courier. I've done a full profile on the Lumpkins because it coordinates with the profile I did on the history of consolidated communications. Yeah. So I can like to see at some point in time highlighting a lot of the personalities that really helped make Mattoon what it is as well.
Did you ever think you would be doing something like this?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. All I knew was when I retired, I was not going to go sit at home and watch TV all day. So
now you spend your time with Carl at the library.
Exactly.
Well, Carl, let's get into some of the other library stuff. I guess I want to, Chris, real quick, or Carl. Now, somebody is with COVID right now. Can anybody go visit the History Project, or they need to call ahead? Or
sure.
I know you can call for an appointment if you want like a tour with you,
right.
But what's the rules on that?
Okay, you can call ahead if you want an appointment for a tour. Earlier on, we were asking people to just call ahead anyway, just to make sure we didn't get overloaded.
Yeah.
That's not happened. So I'm there every day from 9 to about lunchtime, and then I come back and usually stay till 3 or 3:30. So anybody that's in the library, they're welcome to come down. I'm always happy to have visitors, and I'm happy to show people around. And what happens a lot is I'll give somebody kind of a walkthrough, and then they may, in fact, I had some people last week that I gave them a walkthrough a couple weeks ago, and they came back and they said, we just want to take the time to read some of these boards.
Yeah.
So they kind of just entertain themselves. So it's whatever works for people works for me.
Wow.
One of the things along that line, just to piggyback on that, pre-COVID, we had some class reunions that a class reunion weekend, they'll typically have a dinner on like a Saturday night, but they'll have some other activities. And we've done a few of those. Chris has done a few of those. There was a family or two last year that came back, and they have their family is from Mattoon, and they meet back for a weekend or several days. And so this room really fits those kinds of activities quite well. And we did, again, pre-COVID, and we will get back to, we also had some school groups come down. It's really more geared toward adults, but there are some things you can do with kiddos that are really kind of fun, actually. One being that when you talk about old grocery stores and you get this question, why don't they just all go to Walmart? That's kind of a little teaching point. But it is good for people are welcomed and encouraged to come down individually, but if there are some groups or a group of friends or a class reunion or a family reunion, we'd love to have them.
I saw we had every yearbook from 1904,
We
right?
have every yearbook from 1904 to current. We're missing about 5 or 6 in those middle teen years. So if anybody's out there and's got one of those in a shoebox under their bed, we'd love to have it. If I can also just comment one thing on what Carl said, raised a good point. I've had really very good response from people that are from Mattoon and their spouse is not. And so they bring their spouse down, and it's a good way to introduce their spouse to what Mattoon was all about in their growing up years. And I've had really good responses from people that have done that.
What about local history teachers at the middle school or high school? Have they reached out and said, hey, we'd like to bring somebody there? Or, I know they have their own kind of agenda and they have to follow, but it seems like it's just a neat idea to learn something.
Well, and like Carl mentioned, we did have several, especially the middle school. Of course, I've got a connection to the middle school that I can lean on pretty heavily. But we had several middle school groups come pre-COVID. We have not ramped that back up yet, but that's certainly...
We're inching that way.
Yes, yes.
We hope. Knock on wood.
Good question.
There you go. Summer reading in the park's going to come back, I saw?
Yes. Two things. Summer Read is our program where we promote reading for kiddos through the summer. That starts on June the 7th. You can sign up now. You can go to our website, and it's and Beanstack is the vendor that we use, and log your hours. That is for kiddos and also adults, and we have a few prizes, so adults want to log their hours this summer, that would be great. And so I think I said that starts on June the 7th, and then Movies in the Park starts on June the 4th, and that's in Lytle Park. It is, I believe, 9 Friday nights. It's every Friday night from June the 4th until early August, with the exception of we take Bagel Fest week off, so Bagel Fest is the focus that week. And the movies start at dusk. They are all family oriented. Bring a lawn chair or a blanket, something to sit on. The sound is good. Bring a soft drink. Just make sure you put your trash in the trash can, please. There are restrooms out there, but I think most everybody knows, I mean, Lytle Park is a tremendous facility. Justin Grady does a great job, and it has a big screen feel to it. And
it's pretty neat.
We're really looking forward to having Movies in the Park back this year.
So as we move forward, now I want to go back to the history of this, and Carl, you can answer this too. I'll let Chris go first. Is when you were doing this project and what any of the categories, did something just stand out that you were like, wow, I had no idea? I mean, what did you learn that kind of just shocked? I don't know if it was shocked is the right word, but just you were like, wow.
Well, I tell everybody that I learn something every day. I mean, I really do, just doing the research. But I would say not so much any one thing, but just the overall aura of what a huge industrial community we were in the 30s and 40s, and of course a lot of that was driven by the railroads, but we were a huge manufacturing center. I mean, this was a thriving city in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and even into the 50s. Of course, things change, industry leaves, the railroads leaving had a big impact on some of the industry, and we kind of try and cover all that and kind of explain that. For every business that left, there's usually a multitude of reasons. So, yeah, there's no one big thing jumped out at me, but just the overwhelming sense of what a dynamic community Mattoon was.
Carl, anything when you were looking at the history project that just was a wow factor?
I don't know if it's a wow factor, but I'll mention three things very quickly. So most people know that Mattoon was railroads really drove the. I didn't necessarily think of some of the offshoot industries such as ice and ice as an industry, and people actually built a business around that of icing the trains as they came through. The second thing was I might have guessed or thought that Mattoon had a role in World War II, but we have a pretty close replica to shells that were manufactured in Mattoon during World War II that Colonel Yelk has loaned us, and that's a very cool piece. And the third thing, and this is one of the things the kiddos really love, is after Mr. Lumpkin died, we got access to some of his collection, and we have an antique phone booth that is really in pristine condition.
Was that the one that was in the front of the lobby at the old place or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there are some cool things like that I don't know if it's a wow factor, but there are things that you might consider surprising or that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see.
That's interesting. Now, I was going to ask this, but I guess you guys was there anything on the other side that you're like, man, I wish I wouldn't have found that? It was depressing, sad. I know businesses leave, but I think we've all gotten used to that. But any other stories or those? I love those stories behind the story.
Well, probably the one, in fact, it came up again today, and Carl will laugh, but I absolutely refuse to do any research about the Mad Gasser. It just drives me crazy that people are. That people make the connection with Mattoon and the Mad Gasser. I mean, it's just it's a non-issue as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we did. This is our story, and we had to do two stories on that because it just fascinates people for. I guess I don't know if it's because of the funniness, the name of it, or what, but that's good. So
let me. So one of the things you said, what really surprised me. So one thing that I did find that was really cool, and this would go into researching people, is in 1900. Mattoon had at the turn of the century, there were 7 years in a row. Mattoon had a big free street fair, and we've got a display about it. And Mattoon was the first city in Illinois to put on free street fairs. And in 1900. The Buffalo Bill Cody Wild West show came to Mattoon, and the reason he came is because Colonel J.P. Boggs, who retired to Mattoon and actually was quite a character in Mattoon for many, many years, had been with Buffalo Bill Cody out west. He'd been an Indian scout, and he was actually captured by Indians, and Cody rescued him. And when Wild Bill Cody died, in Denver, I forget the exact year, J.P. Boggs, who still lived in Mattoon, took the train to Denver and served as an honorary pallbearer for him. So I mean, that was one of those one of those little stories that nobody ever knew, and it was just what a connection to history right there.
Another thing that happened recently, the late Mark Henderson's estate gave you guys a gigantic donation, or at least a substantial donation. Talk about Mark and what donations like that help the library and do for it.
Well, one of the things that's happened in my 4 years is we've really kind of focused more on philanthropy as a kind of an ongoing thing and a way to support the library so that we could do, I don't really want to use the word extra, but to do some things that you otherwise wouldn't be able to afford. And so we started an annual fundraiser, and we've promoted the idea of the library as a good place for people who are looking to put some dollars in the philanthropy world. And when you do that, you sometimes find some people who will, you appreciate every dollar, you appreciate everybody, but occasionally there'll be some opportunities for some gifts that are a little bit bigger and sometimes substantially bigger. And so I guess it's been 3 years ago now. John Henderson, who at the time lived in Pittsburgh and had some success in the financial world, his parents were very active in Mattoon. He wanted to find a way to honor them, and so he gave us $10,000, and his company matched that. And so in his case, they really wanted to focus on the physical book collection. He thought that would be important and something that they would really enjoy and appreciate. And so we spaced out that donation over 3 years. So it was $6,000-$7,000 a year. And so I got a call from John, I don't know, 2-3 months ago, can I stop by? And I said, well, of course. And
no.
and he was on his way somewhere else. And when he stopped by, he said, "Well, our 3 years are up. I'd like to do another 20,000, and this time I'd like to do it in honor of my brother." His brother Mark died in 2018, and died young, 66. I think everybody would agree is young. And Mark really had quite a history in Mattoon and very successful career out at Lakeland. And John wanted to do this in memory of his brother. And so again, we're spacing that out, the spending of it over 3 years. But John's been I mean, those obviously are kinds of things you don't expect, but are much appreciated, and we fully intend to put it to good use.
What about volunteer needs right now? Is there still volunteers, board openings, or anything? We've got a couple minutes left today with Carl Walworth and Chris Suerdieck.
We don't have any board openings currently. We do use some volunteers. We don't use a lot necessarily, but you know, the summertime is a decent time to volunteer. We just had one who came and helped us kind of do some weeding, which is taking out books that haven't checked out in 3 or 4 years and make our collection look a little bit better, make the gems shine, help the gems shine. So we've done some of that. We've done some projects like that, you know, over the last year.
You also do the homebound program, right? Where
do.
somebody can't get out, you can bring them a book? Or
Absolutely. We will deliver somebody's house or to a senior living facility. The Rotary Club provides the volunteers to deliver to the homebound. And so that's an opportunity.
All right. Well, you guys want to do world famous last questions then? Where I'll just rapid fire. I'll go Carl then Chris. They may be related to the library, may not be.
I kind of forgot about this.
Yeah, so we'll probably get through 4 or 5 of them. All right. Okay. And they're usually easy. Favorite high school teacher?
Oh, wow. Favorite high school teacher? Well, I love football, so it'd have to be the football coach, right?
All right. Your answer, Chris. Favorite high school teacher?
Oh my gosh! Well, you know what? This will really throw people. I would say Captain Ralph Eggenmeyer, because I was in ROTC for 3 years, and he was a mentor to me. He was a great guy.
Favorite high school or college class that you took? That one class you just loved?
You know, I loved the basic reporting, journalism 350, taught by a guy who worked for the AP for many years, and he is one teacher who I use every day.
Dr. David Maurer, 20th Century History at Eastern Illinois University.
I know, that's a good guy right there. So, did you have a nickname in high school or college, Carl?
Chuck.
Nope.
No nickname. Okay. Will you take a summer vacation, and if so, where?
We will probably go to Lake Geneva for a long weekend. We love Lake Geneva.
Chris?
Santa Barbara, California in 2 days.
Oh, that's why he's got that shirt on. There you go. Well, thank you both for coming in. It was great to talk about Mattoon history. Great job you both are doing at the Mattoon Library. Go visit it if you can. And again, thanks guys for coming in.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
We are WEIU. Everybody have yourself a great day.